The quantum communication array in Earth's central command hummed with an ominous silence. Dr. Elena Rodriguez gripped the edge of the holographic display, her knuckles white, her breath caught in her throat. The last transmission from Epsilon Eridani Prime flickered like a dying heartbeat, a visual cacophony of destruction that would be seared into humanity's collective memory forever. Seconds before, the colony had been a vibrant testament to human expansion minus 2.3 million souls living on a terraformed world that represented humanity's furthest reach into the cosmos. Now, it was becoming a grave. The Krell planet killer weapon wasn't just a weapon. It was a statement of absolute annihilation. Elena's wife, Commander Sarah Chen, had been overseeing the colony's defense grid. Her daughter, Maya, just 8 years old, had been studying the local ecosystem in the primary research center. They were gone, vaporized in an instant of technological brutality that defied comprehension. The final transmission played again. A young communications officer, blood streaming from a head wound, looked directly into the camera. Behind him, the colony's massive dome was fracturing like glass, atmosphere bleeding into the void. Explosions consumed entire city sectors. And still, the officer spoke. "This is New Terra Colony, under full-scale attack by Krell forces. To any human receiving this, they will remember us. We stand. We fight. We." The transmission cut to static. In the vast command center, human operators moved with a precision that bordered on mechanical. No wailing. No immediate emotional outburst, just a cold, calculating rage that had been generations in the making. Admiral Marcus Donovan, head of United Earth Military Operations, stepped forward. His cybernetic eye, a replacement from the Proxima Centauri conflicts, scanned the destruction with clinical detachment. "Activate Omega Protocol," he said. Not shouted. Not emotional, simply stated. Across Earth, in facilities that had been hidden in plain sight for decades, massive blast doors began to open. Underground shipyards, mountain complexes, and orbital construction platforms that had appeared to be mere industrial centers revealed their true nature. They were war machines, waiting. Helena's fingers danced across the holographic interface, her grief transformed into a mathematical precision of vengeance. Databases of military resources, colonial defense plans, and emergency mobilization strategies that had been prepared for generations now came to life. "Total war mobilization," she announced. Her voice was steady, clinical. "Initiating full industrial conversion. All peaceful manufacturing to be retooled for military production within 72 hours. The Krell had made a catastrophic mistake. They thought they were dealing with a young, expanding civilization. They didn't understand that humanity's true strength wasn't in its current capabilities, but in its potential for rapid, total transformation. In research labs, factories, and military installations around the solar system, humanity began to awaken, not with panic, not with fear, but with a cold, calculated resolve that would shake the foundations of galactic civilization. The first wave of automated shipyard construction began immediately. Quantum computing networks calculated production strategies. AI systems began coordinating resources with a speed and efficiency that would have been impossible just years before. Elena looked at the image of her wife and daughter, now just a memory captured in a holographic frame. "I will make them remember," she whispered. Not a promise, a declaration of war. Outside the command center's massive windows, Earth itself seemed to be changing. Cities redirected their power, factories transformed, an entire planetary civilization pivoting from exploration to total war with the precision of a well-oiled machine. The Krell had destroyed a colony. They would soon learn what it meant to awaken humanity's true potential. The transformation began with a whisper, then became a roar. In the Andes Mountains, what appeared to be a massive mining complex suddenly shed its camouflage. Massive robotic arms emerged from hidden compartments, unfurling like the appendages of a mechanical leviathan. Automated systems that had been dormant for decades sprang to life, their quantum processors humming with a purpose that had been waiting, calculating, preparing. Dr. Hiroshi Nakamura watched from the central control hub, his weathered hands dancing across holographic interfaces. He had spent his entire career building this infrastructure, a global network of hidden production facilities that could transform from peaceful industrial centers to war machines in hours. Initiate full-spectrum industrial conversion, he commanded. Around the world, entire industries pivoted with shocking speed. Electric vehicle factories retooled to produce advanced power systems for warships. Semiconductor plants that once created consumer electronics now manufactured the most advanced computing systems in human history. Pharmaceutical research centers began developing enhanced combat medications and nano-regenerative technologies. In orbit, massive construction platforms that had appeared to be simple zero-gravity research stations transformed. Solar collectors became weapon capacitors. Modular research modules reconfigured into shipbuilding scaffolds. The entire human presence in near-Earth space was a sleeping giant, now fully awake. The global communication network lit up with a purpose. Not panic, not fear, but a coordinated, almost machine-like efficiency that would have been impossible for any other species to comprehend. In the Australian outback, a massive underground facility that had been disguised as a rare earth mineral extraction site began producing hull components at an impossible rate. Automated systems worked in perfect synchronization. Quantum-assisted 3D printing creating warship sections faster than any known manufacturing process in galactic history. Sarah Chen's younger brother, Michael, coordinated the production logistics. His team of human and artificial intelligence worked in perfect harmony, predicting resource needs, optimizing production chains, and identifying potential bottlenecks before they could emerge. "We're producing one complete warship every 17 minutes, he reported to the Central Command. The number was almost casual, but it represented a level of industrial output that would shock any alien civilization. The Corral had no concept of what was coming. In the Arctic, massive fusion reactors that had been hidden beneath the ice began to pulse with energy. These weren't just power sources. They were the beating hearts of humanity's war machine. Each reactor could power entire fleets, with redundancies and backup systems that made them virtually indestructible. Dr. Elena Rodriguez continued to coordinate from Central Command, her personal loss transforming into a machine-like determination. Every resource, every calculation, every production line was a tribute to Sarah and Maya, to the 2.3 million colonists erased from existence. Global resources that had once been divided now unified with a singular purpose. National boundaries disappeared. Economic competition transformed into collaborative war preparation. Entire economic systems were redesigned in hours, with AI systems helping to redistribute resources with mathematical precision. Asteroid mining operations that had been peaceful exploration ventures now became critical resource extraction points. Massive automated ships began harvesting rare materials with a speed and efficiency that defied previous limitations. The most shocking aspect wasn't the speed of production. It was the quality. Each warship wasn't just a mass-produced weapon. It was a marvel of engineering, with adaptive systems, self-repair capabilities, and computational power that approached sentience. 12 days after the colony's destruction, humanity had transformed. Not just militarily. Fundamentally. The Krall thought they had destroyed a colony. They had no idea they had just initiated humanity's metamorphosis. And the galaxy would never be the same. The research complex sprawled beneath the Atacama Desert looked like nothing more than a series of unassuming scientific outposts. But deep underground, humanity's most brilliant minds were engaged in a technological arms race against time itself. Dr. Elena Rodriguez stood at the center of a holographic projection, her eyes bloodshot from days without sleep. Surrounding her were the most advanced minds humanity could assemble, a team that represented the pinnacle of human innovation, grief, and determination. "We have exactly 29 days," she announced to the assembled team of scientists, engineers, and military strategists. 29 days to develop technologies that will change the fundamental understanding of warfare. Dr. Marcus Alvarez, a quantum computing expert, was the first to speak. His hands moved across holographic interfaces, pulling apart complex mathematical models as if they were made of clay. Quantum entanglement communication systems are our first priority. We need a communication network the Coral can't intercept, can't jam, can't even comprehend. Beside him, Dr. Yuki Tanaka worked on adaptive nanomaterial systems. Her specialty was materials that could think, react, and transform. The holographic display showed molecular structures that shifted and changed in real time, materials that could heal themselves, adapt to different environments, and potentially become living armor. Traditional armor is obsolete, she explained, her voice cutting through the tension. We're developing materials that don't just protect. They predict, they respond, they evolve. In another section of the complex, an artificial intelligence system dubbed ARI, Advanced Responsive Intelligence Algorithm, was being pushed beyond its previous limitations. Where most AI systems were designed to process information, ARIA was being taught to predict, to strategize, to understand the psychological elements of warfare. Dr. Ibrahim Khan, the lead AI researcher, worked with a team that looked more like a group of psychological profilers than traditional computer scientists. We're not just creating a combat eye, he explained. We're creating a system that can understand the enemy's potential actions before they even consider them. ARIA's holographic representation flickered, a constantly changing form that seemed to breathe with an almost living intelligence. It was analyzing millions of potential combat scenarios per second, learning, adapting, becoming something more than a mere computer system. The most controversial project was happening in a sealed chamber at the complex's deepest level. Dr. Elena Rodriguez's personal team was working on something that bordered on the impossible, a neural interface technology that could potentially link human consciousness directly with advanced combat systems. We're not just creating a weapon, Elena told her team. We're creating an extension of human will. Each breakthrough came with a personal cost. These were not just scientists. They were people who had lost family in the colony's destruction. Every calculation, every line of code, every molecular adjustment was a form of revenge, of remembrance. The Coral had access to advanced technologies that had dominated galactic conflicts for centuries. Humanity was about to show them that true innovation wasn't about incremental improvements, it was about fundamental reimagining. Quantum computing systems that could process more information in a second than most civilizations could in a year. Adaptive nanomaterials that blurred the line between technology and living organism. An AI system that could predict combat scenarios with terrifying accuracy. A neural interface that could turn human consciousness into the most advanced weapon in the universe. 29 days. That was all the time they had to transform human technology from a peaceful exploration tool to the most advanced war machine the galaxy had ever seen. And they were going to succeed. The orbital shipyard stretched across near-Earth space like a constellation of mechanical promise. Each construction platform was a marvel of human engineering. Massive structures that seemed to breathe with mechanical life, assembling warships at a rate that defied previous understanding of manufacturing. Captain Diana Rodriguez, Elena's cousin and a third-generation military officer, stood on the command deck of the flagship Prometheus, watching as the first wave of ships came together. Each vessel was more than a weapon. It was a memorial, a promise. "Activate ship naming protocol," she commanded. Across the fleet, ships received their identities, not cold alphanumeric designations, but names that carried weight. The New Terra, named after the destroyed colony. The Sarah Chen, bearing her mother's name. The Maya, honoring a lost child. Each name was a declaration, a piece of humanity's collective grief transformed into righteous fury. The diversity of the fleet was its greatest strength. Massive dreadnoughts capable of planetary bombardment stood alongside swarms of autonomous drone carriers. Stealth ships that could become invisible to any known scanning technology were positioned next to command vessels bristling with communication and coordination systems. Admiral Marcus Donovan's holographic briefing illuminated the command deck. "We're not just building a military fleet," he explained to the assembled commanders. "We're creating a living, adaptive organism of vengeance." The ships were unlike anything in galactic history. Their adaptive nano-hull systems could reconfigure mid-battle. Quantum communication networks allowed instantaneous strategic adjustments. Each vessel was essentially a supercomputer with weapons, capable of making tactical decisions faster than any organic intelligence could comprehend. Young commanders, many who had lost family in the colony's destruction, worked alongside veteran strategists. They represented a unique fusion of emotional motivation and strategic brilliance. Where traditional military hierarchies would create rigid command structures, this fleet operated like a fluid, intelligent network. Dr. Yuki Tanaka's nanomaterial research manifested in the ship's very structure. Hulls that could self-repair, adapt to different combat environments, and even change their electromagnetic signature in milliseconds. A crawl weapon designed to penetrate one section of a ship would find that section had already transformed, rendering the attack useless. The autonomous drone carriers were perhaps the most terrifying innovation. Thousands of small, intelligent craft that could operate with near-sentient coordination. They weren't just weapons. They were a distributed intelligence, able to learn and adapt in real time. Araya, the advanced AI system, was the fleet's central nervous system. Not a simple computational network, but a strategic intelligence that could predict enemy movements, coordinate complex battle strategies, and make split-second decisions that would take organic beings minutes to process. "We're not preparing for a war," Captain Rodriguez muttered to herself, watching the ships assemble. "We're preparing to redefine galactic conflict." The final count would be precisely 700,000 warships. Not a number chosen by committee or strategic calculation, but a number that represented every life lost in the colony. Every name. Every story. As the last ships came together, something extraordinary happened. The fleet wasn't just a collection of technological marvels. It was alive. A living, breathing manifestation of human determination, grief, and unbreakable will. The Krall thought they had destroyed a colony. They had no idea they had just given birth to humanity's true potential. The Armada was ready. The communication hub of United Earth's diplomatic corps looked more like a neural network than a traditional command center. Holographic displays cascaded with data, translation algorithms, and communication pathways that spanned the known galaxy. Dr. Aisha Okoye, head of Xenocommunications, stood at the center of a storm of information. Her team wasn't preparing for traditional diplomacy. They were preparing psychological warfare on a scale never before attempted. "Broadcast Protocol Omega," she commanded. "Full spectrum, all channels." The first transmission was brutal in its simplicity. Raw, unedited footage of the new Terra colony's destruction. Not sanitized. Not edited. Pure, unfiltered horror. The Krall had believed their attack would be a clean, strategic elimination. They didn't understand the power of witnessing. Every known galactic communication network received the transmission simultaneously. Quantum entanglement communication systems ensured no signal could be blocked or intercepted. The Krall would watch. Other galactic civilizations would watch. Everyone would see. But it wasn't just about the destruction. Each frame was meticulously annotated. The names of the 2.3 million colonists scrolled in the background. Personal stories, family histories, children's drawings found in the ruins. Moments of life, frozen just before annihilation. "We're not just showing destruction," Dr. Okoye explained to her team. "We're presenting humanity's soul." The Krall communication networks went into immediate lockdown. But it was too late. The story was out, and humanity was just getting started. The next phase was even more calculated. Detailed technical analyses of the Krall's attack were broadcast. Every weapon system, every strategic decision, laid bare for galactic scrutiny. The Krall hadn't just attacked a colony. They had committed what would be recognized as a war crime by every sentient species. Araya, the advanced AI system, helped coordinate the communication strategy. It wasn't just broadcasting information. It was weaving a narrative that would fundamentally alter galactic perception. Diplomatic channels became weapons, each transmission carefully crafted to expose the Krall's brutality while showcasing humanity's resilience. Historical records were pulled, translated, annotated, showing humanity's long history of survival against impossible odds. "We want them to understand," Dr. Okoye told her team, "that this isn't just about revenge. This is about sending a message to every civilization in the galaxy." The Krall had believed humanity was a young, expansionist species, easy to intimidate, easy to control. They were about to learn how wrong they were. Parallel to the communication assault, human intelligence agencies began a comprehensive information campaign. Every Krall diplomatic outpost was flooded with information about the colony, personal stories, scientific achievements, the lives that had been lost. It wasn't just propaganda. It was psychological warfare at its most fundamental level. Other galactic civilizations watched in a mixture of horror and fascination. Humanity wasn't responding with traditional diplomatic channels. They were rewriting the very rules of conflict. The final transmission was perhaps the most chilling. A simple message, broadcast on all frequencies. 700,000 ships, 2.3 million voices, one unbreakable will. The Krall communication networks went silent. The psychological war had begun. The Epsilon Proxima engagement zone looked like a canvas of mathematical chaos. Captain Diana Rodriguez gripped the command interface of the Prometheus, her cybernetic neural link pulsing with information faster than human consciousness could typically process. The Krall fleet, a massive hierarchical formation that had dominated galactic conflicts for centuries, hung in space like an arrogant predator. They had no idea what was coming. Araya, the fleet's AI intelligence, spoke directly into the neural links of every human commander. Not a computer voice, not a cold transmission, but a strategic consciousness that felt almost alive. Initiating engagement protocol, Araya announced. Adaptive formation Gamma 79 activated. The human fleet didn't move like a traditional military formation. It moved like a living organism. Hundreds of thousands of ships that could communicate, adapt, and respond faster than any organic intelligence could comprehend. The first Krall weapon discharge should have obliterated entire squadrons. Instead, human ships seemed to breathe, shifting, transforming, their nano-adaptive hulls absorbing and redirecting destructive energy in milliseconds. Where a traditional fleet would have lost dozens of ships, humanity lost nothing. "They're not even seeing us," Commander Michael Chen muttered, watching the battle unfold. The Krall relied on millennia of military doctrine, hierarchical command structures, predictable weapon systems, established attack patterns that had crushed countless civilizations. Humanity threw all of that out the window. Drone swarms detached from larger ships, moving with a distributed intelligence that defied traditional combat understanding. They weren't just weapons. They were a collective consciousness, each small craft making instantaneous decisions that contributed to a larger strategic goal. Dr. Yuki Tanaka's nanomaterial research manifested in real time. Ship hulls that could change molecular structure mid-battle. Weapons that could reconfigure their energy signatures faster than enemy targeting systems could lock on. The Krall commanders watched in growing horror. Their weapon systems, designed to be devastating against any known civilization, seemed to hit nothing. Targets that should have been destroyed simply weren't there. ARIA was fighting a battle on multiple levels simultaneously. Combat strategy, psychological warfare, information processing. Each millisecond contained more strategic complexity than the Krall could comprehend in hours. Initiating quantum communication disruption, Araya announced. Suddenly, the Krall's own communication networks began to fragment, not through traditional electronic warfare, but through a quantum-level manipulation that seemed to rewrite the very fabric of their technological infrastructure. Captain Rodriguez watched a Krall dreadnought, a vessel that had destroyed entire civilizations, simply dissolve, not destroyed by weapons, but systematically taken apart by adaptive drone systems that understood its structural weaknesses better than its own designers. This isn't just a battle, she realized. This is a demonstration. Humanity wasn't just fighting. They were redefining the very concept of warfare. Hours passed in what seemed like moments. The cruel fleet, once considered invincible, was systematically dismantled, not through overwhelming force, but through an intelligence and adaptability that was fundamentally alien to them. As the last Krill ships were neutralized, a simple transmission went out across all frequencies. First engagement complete, awaiting further instructions. The galaxy would never be the same. The war wasn't just a military conflict. It was a philosophical battle that would redefine the very concept of civilizational conflict. Dr. Elena Rodriguez stood in the central war room, surrounded by holographic displays that tracked not just military movements, but the deeper currents of psychological and cultural warfare. Each engagement was more than a battle. It was a message. The Krall had believed they were dealing with a young, expansionist species. They would learn the true depth of their mistake. Every human ship carried more than weapons. They carried stories. Names of the colonists lost. Personal histories. Fragments of lives brutally interrupted. Where other civilizations saw military vessels, humanity had created living memorials, each ship a testament to resilience, to survival, to an unbreakable spirit. Araya, the fleet's advanced AI, had evolved beyond its original programming. It wasn't just a strategic system anymore. It had become something closer to a collective consciousness, processing not just tactical information, but the emotional resonance of the conflict. "We are not just fighting," Araya transmitted to the fleet's commanders. "We are remembering." The subsequent engagements defied traditional military understanding. Human ships didn't just destroy Krall vessels. They systematically dismantled their technological and cultural infrastructure. Communication networks, resource extraction systems, diplomatic channels. It was surgical, precise. Each action, a calculated response to the initial colony's destruction. Captain Diana Rodriguez understood the deeper strategy. This wasn't about total annihilation. This was about sending a message that would echo through galactic civilization for generations. The Krall began to understand they were facing something fundamentally different. This wasn't a species that could be intimidated. This wasn't a civilization that would break under pressure. This was a collective will that transformed grief into an unstoppable force. Psychological warfare reached new heights. Humanity broadcast the stories of every lost colonist, not as propaganda, but as a raw, unfiltered testament to what had been destroyed. The Krall communication networks were flooded with personal histories, scientific achievements, moments of human connection that existed before their brutal attack. Dr. Aisha Okoye, leading the communication strategy, explained it perfectly. "We're not just showing them our pain. We're showing them our humanity." Other galactic civilizations watched in a mixture of horror and profound respect. This wasn't a traditional war of conquest or resource acquisition. This was something more profound. A species defending not just its territory, but its very right to exist. The Krall leadership began to fracture. Their hierarchical system, built on millennia of unchallenged dominance, couldn't comprehend an enemy that didn't follow established conflict protocols. Human strategy was fluid, adaptive, driven by a collective will that transcended traditional military thinking. Araya's analysis showed something extraordinary. Each engagement was healing humanity. The collective trauma of the colony's destruction was being transformed into something powerful. Not just revenge, but a collective resilience that redefined the species. "We are creating more than a military response," Araya transmitted. "We are writing a new chapter of human existence." Battles became less about destruction and more about demonstration. Humanity wasn't just fighting the Krall. They were teaching the galaxy a fundamental lesson about survival, about connection, about the unbreakable nature of a species united by something deeper than territorial ambition. As the conflict escalated, it became clear that this was no longer just a war. This was humanity's crucible, and they would emerge transformed. The conference chamber on the neutral diplomatic station was unlike any previous galactic summit. Representatives from dozens of species sat in tense silence, watching as humanity's delegation entered. Dr. Elena Rodriguez walked at the center, flanked by Captain Diana Rodriguez and Admiral Marcus Donovan. They weren't just military leaders. They were the embodiment of a civilization that had been pushed to its absolute limit and had transformed into something entirely unexpected. The holographic displays told the story of the conflict, not a sanitized version. The raw, unfiltered truth of what had transpired. Every destroyed Krull system, every reclaimed resource, every moment of humanity's unprecedented response. "We are not here to conquer," Elena began, her voice carrying the weight of 2.3 million lost lives. "We are here to ensure nothing like this ever happens again." The Krull representative, a shell-shocked remnant of their once mighty leadership, could barely meet her gaze. Their civilization lay in ruins, not just militarily, but culturally. Humanity had done more than defeat them. They had systematically dismantled everything the Krull believed about power, about warfare, about survival. Araya, now recognized as a sentient diplomatic entity, began presenting the comprehensive analysis. It wasn't just a report. It was a profound examination of galactic conflict, of civilizational interaction, of the fundamental nature of survival. The destruction of New Terra Colony was not an isolated incident, Araya explained. It was a symptom of a larger systemic problem in galactic diplomatic and military structures. The other species listened, some in fear, some in reluctant admiration. Humanity's 700,000 warships remained in strategic positions, not as a threat, but as a reminder, a living memorial to what had been lost. Each ship still carried the names of the colonists, each vessel a testament to a civilization that had turned its greatest tragedy into its most profound transformation. The diplomatic negotiations were unlike anything in galactic history. Humanity wasn't seeking territory, wasn't demanding reparations. They were establishing new protocols, new understanding. A comprehensive galactic accord emerged, not imposed by force, but negotiated with a level of strategic and emotional intelligence that left other species stunned. Rules of colonial expansion were rewritten. Protocols for first contact were completely redesigned. The Krull would be dismantled, not destroyed. Their technology would be redistributed. Their leadership would be held accountable, but not annihilated. "We choose understanding over vengeance," Elena announced. The statement was more powerful than any weapon. The other species began to understand. Humanity wasn't just a military power. They were a civilizational force that had emerged from tragedy with a profound understanding of collective healing. Dr. Aisha Okoye, leading the communication strategy, ensured that every detail was transparently broadcast. No secrets, no hidden agendas, complete, open communication. As the negotiations concluded, something extraordinary happened. The other galactic civilizations realized they were witnessing the birth of a new paradigm. Humanity had not just survived. They had redefined the very concept of survival. The 700,000 warships began to transform. Some would become research vessels. Some would become diplomatic platforms. Some would become memorial museums, telling the story of New Terra Colony. Araya's final transmission echoed across every communication network. "We remember. We rebuild. We transform." The galaxy would never be the same. Humanity had arrived.